Okay, looks pretty good. Everything here looks okay. So, yeah, today's discussion is going to be about proving evolution to be false. I don't know about this camera angle. This camera angle is kind of weird, but anyway. If I put it to one side or the other, then it's really confuses me. Should be on the top of the thing. I can't hear it on the top, though. Well, there you go. There you go. How about that? All right. Let me straighten it out a bit. Okay. All right. So, I guess it's okay. Anyway, hold on a second. All right. Yeah. Evolution is easy to show that it's false. Something's still not right. Well, I guess it's better. All right. Yeah. So, evolution is easy to show that it's false because evolution only has one mechanism. There's only one mechanism for evolution, and that is by making mistakes. It's the only mechanism for evolution that there is. So evolution depends and relies on making mistakes, making the right mistakes. And what it ultimately ends up doing is causing genetic entropy anyway, which is proven because we have a smaller genome than Neanderthals, like considerably smaller genome. So we've lost a lot of information and variability. And so we've lost a lot of, human variability, like different potential humans and stuff. But of course, that's the judgment of God on the earth. Caused a global flood and wiped out the majority of the people and the majority of the animals too. And but what what does cause the variation is the fact that we have two parents with two uh, different sets of information, and when the reason why they like to get in testing the genome, they like to get different, I mean, different DNA tests from the same family in order to study things because my my genome, for example, is 50% of my father and 50% of my mother, but it's not the same 50% of my father and mother for my brother. My brother has a different set of 50 information, 50% of my father and 50% more or less of my mother. It can vary, it's not exactly 50% all the time, but it's close. And this is what causes the variations, not the making mistakes so much. Of course, it helps. It makes the changes, the color of the hair, the color of the eyes, different slight variations are so-called mutations. But I mean, as far as I know, that could be a variation in and of itself, anyways. It's just that most of the variation is from reproduction or mixing half of the father and half of the mother. Hello, Dougie. How you doing? Good morning. So that's the easiest way for me to disprove the evolution is because evolution relies entirely on making mistakes that are supposed to be good, and they end up being, you know, all of the mutations together end up being bad. Oh, 600 subs. There we go. Yep. I guess I made it. If I did some advertising or promotion, I'd probably get some more, which I might do a little bit of that. And yeah, and I'm fully retired now. So I still go to work, but I don't have to. So I'm pretty much, completely retired. Retired or retarded or something. I don't know. So, yeah, so the easiest way to disprove evolution is to show that the variation is not from making mistakes. The variation is from a mix of the father and the mother. Is 50% of the father and mother, but it's never the same 50% unless it's a identical twin. Yeah, King of the Ozark. I would like to be. I would like to be, but a king of my little town, maybe. They went. They said I could be mayor of the little town where I'm at. So anyway, yeah. So it's easy to understand once you understand what causes the variation is not from mistakes. Mistakes are very rare. Sure, there's like 3 or 4 mistakes each time, you know, somebody's born or whatever, or however many it is, but it's not responsible for all the variation that we see. The variation that we see is from mixing the genome of the father and the mother, but it's never the same mix of information. So that's why the kids always come out different. They always look different because of the different set of information, and that's what causes all the variation. And then of course traits are enforced and everything like that. But it's from existing information. It's not from making mistakes. And of course, making mistakes is detrimental. So it's easy. It's easy to prove. Another thing I wanted to touch on today is that I'm very, very confident in the haplogroup designations that I've assigned to all of the haplogroup lineages of all the ancient civilizations as to who they are, because they fit so perfectly. Because it couldn't be, and of course it disproves the out of Africa too, because the out of Africa claims that A produced B, which produced C, which produced D and E and F and G and H and I, J. Their progression of out of Africa is saying, which is totally absurd anyways, because if that were the case, then the A lineage, the genetic distance of the A lineage would be extremely, extremely long, much longer than it is, because it's long because of the mutation rate, and it's also long because of the marriage, the lifespan. I mean, the time when somebody is married or reproduces, which if you reproduce very early, then it's going to have more genetic distance. So there's those two factors that make the A lineage longer, but it's not nearly long enough. It's not nearly long enough for the claim of A producing B, producing C, D, E, F, and so on. And of course, it doesn't match up anyway with the maternal lineage, because in the maternal lineage, it goes from African L to Eurasian M to the Semitic N. And in the Y chromosome lineage, it goes from Hamitic to Semitic to Eurasian instead of the other way around. So the African population supposedly produced Semitic males and Eurasian females, and then that population subsequently reproduced um, the Semitic females and Eurasian males, which makes no sense at all, because the reality is that all the lineages are all existing at the same time. So, basically, even though Ham's the younger one, it's still, they still existed simultaneously. So as soon as A was born, or A, B, C, D, and E, well, A, B, it's a little bit complicated. The A, B, C is Cush. The E1, E2, E3 is Put, Canaan, and Mitzrayim, which is an interesting study too, because you can see exactly what happened to Canaan, exactly what happened to Put, and exactly where Mitzrayim is today. And the largest population is Mitzrayim, which includes all the Berbers and most of the or a lot of the lineages. The A and the B is from Cush, and the C is from Cush too, because the C is the house of Nimrod in Asia. It's the only possible lineage, only possible choice for the C haplogroup can only be Nimrod in Mesopotamia, because Nimrod is from Akkad. He built the city of Akkad, Akkadians, and then he took over Assyria, and the mix of Assyria and the descendants of Nimrod became the later marauding Assyrians that just wreaked havoc everywhere they went, pretty much, except they never were able to conquer Jerusalem. So it can't be. It's the only Hamitic king of the world is Nimrod. So the C is the only possible choice for the descendants of Nimrod. So and there's so many other ones that have to be. They can't possibly be anybody else. The H has to be the descendants of Elam, the Elamites, because they're Dravidian. And the only Semitic haplogroup in the Dravidians is H. And it has to be the Elamites. G has to be Assyria. L has to be, F. F has to be the Arameans and the Lydians, or Lud and Aram. But the thing that I couldn't understand was why. There's a whole bunch of things I couldn't understand, but why the F seemed to be in India and spread out from India, but it's because the Arameans they controlled the trade routes, and that's why Aramean became the lingua franca in the Middle East, and that's why Jesus spoke Aramean. It was because of the Arameans. By controlling all the trade routes all the way to China, it became their language, became the lingua franca, so that At the time of Jesus, that's the language that he spoke. So, so that is very clear. And also, there's two separate F lineages, totally separate from each other. They're not even connected to each other. There's an F1 and an F2, or an F and an F2. And there's more branches and stuff, but there's two major groups of F are not even the same lineage. They should have had a different letter designation, but I guess they ran out of letters when they discovered the Lydians. So that's the reason for that. Just everything fits so well. The T of Tarshish, or the T haplogroup of the Tartessus in Iberia is and throughout the Mediterranean region, there's a lot of T as well, which is Elisha, Dodanim, and Kittim, and Tarshish. But there's only one population in Portugal that has the T population, about 14% or something like that of the population of one group in Portugal is the T, has the T in their population. Hello, Dana. Greetings. So it's only the Bragança Jews in Portugal. The other one, the other group in Portugal doesn't have the T in their population, and none of the other Sephardic groups have the T in their population. It's only the Portuguese. And interesting also is that the Jewish populations have a Q lineage in their population, and that dates back to the time of Esther, when a lot of the Medes and the Persians became Jews. So they became part of the Jewish population. That's why the Q is there. The G is there of the Assyrians because they were exiled into Assyria. And so then there's so many things that has to be. And of course, there's a Cohen-Moto haplotype, which absolutely has to be the lineage of Arpachshad, or the descendants of Levi, Jacob, Abraham, and Arpachshad. It can't be any. It has to be the IJ lineage. Has to be the lineage of Abraham. Can't be anybody else, because of the Cohen-Moto haplotype is J1, not J2, but J1 P58, and that lineage identifies positively and absolutely the lineage of Arpachshad. So it can't be anybody else. And by so doing, it identifies the entire lineage of Shem as well. All the descendants of Shem are F, G, H, I, and J, I, J. But I's branches off from J. So it's the IJ lineage that has the IJK haplogroup, or SNP marker, because of Arpachshad, being the oldest son of Shem, can share an SNP marker with his uncle Japheth, because Shem is the brother of Japheth. So they can share a marker together, and they do. So that's how that works. In spite of the claims of out of Africa, it can still work, rooting the human tree in K, which would be Japheth, which is the oldest son, Or I think even in Shem, if you rooted it in the IJK, I think even that would be good. I think that would be possible as well. Even if Shem was the oldest, I think it wouldn't matter if it was the IJK or the K, either way. But Ham is definitely the younger. Younger of which one? Probably both of them. Probably the youngest. Because the Bible says Ham is the younger. And so the CT of Nimrod, or the C of Nimrod, they call it the CF or the CT or something, the S&P marker. That's a marker, S&P marker, that Nimrod shares with the Semitic population and the Eurasian population. But none of his younger brothers and cousins have the CF marker, which is C through T. Because that's how that works, because you have the groups of people that have that marker. So it's just a marker that everyone can share, at least the older ones can share with everyone older, because they have a common ancestor, not because one produced the other. And the out of Africa claim is that one produced the other, A, B, C, D, E, and like that. But that would be just silly, because it wouldn't even match up. The genetic distance wouldn't match up. Even if A does have a larger or longer genetic distance, which it does, but it's still not enough genetic distance if A produced everything through K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T. Doesn't make sense. Because they're basically, all the lineages are basically the same genetic distance anyways. It's just the A has a larger genetic distance because of the reproduction rate and the mutation rate. So it all fits, in spite of the out of Africa claims, in spite of the out of Africa S&P markers. It all fits very well. And I'm very, very confident in that. I'm very, very confident that AB is Cush in Africa, C is the descendants of Nimrod, D branches off from E2 of the Canaanites, and so D is the lineage of the tribe of Sin, or Sinim. From the land of Sin, they went all the way to Sino, China, and that's where they ended up, in China, Japan, and Tibet. Let's see, I am from Ham, Shem, or Japheth. Shem, Ham, or Japheth. I have been told I am from the tribe of Dan. It's hard to say if I don't know your father's Y chromosome. If I knew your father's Y chromosome haplogroup, I could easily say which one you belong to, because it's really the only way you can tell, because that's the only lineage that doesn't mix. It's a lineage that doesn't mix, just goes straight down the family tree, or it branches out, but it doesn't mix with other lineages. The mitochondrial maternal lineage doesn't mix with other lineages, and the Y chromosome doesn't mix with other lineages. It goes all the way back to the beginning, all the way back to the origin, which of the ancient civilizations, which is 16 ancient civilizations, 7 sons of Japheth, 5 sons of Shem, and 4 sons of Ham. So depending on your father's Y chromosome, that's what what your original ancestor was, going straight back through the father, all the way back to its origin. Same thing with the mitochondrial DNA. It goes straight through the mother all the way to the origin of the mother. And the mitochondrial grouping is L, M, and N. And then under the M, there's the E, Z, D, Q, and like. And then under the N, there's the other ones, which are H and N and a whole bunch of other ones. Those are all the Semitic lineage, the mitochondrial lineages. See, IRJ would definitely be, it would definitely be the descendant of Arpachshad. If it's I1, it could be Dan, and if it's I2, it could be Asher. And if it's J, it could be Judah, it could be any of the other tribes of Israel, or it could be Arabic. Could be anyone. But I haven't studied the divisions of J very much to determine which is which, but I know J2 is pretty much the tribe of Judah and Israel, or Israel. And J1 can be Israel and or Arabic, as far as I can tell. What a barbershop. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm pretty confident, and I'm just going to have to study more the divisions of J and determine who. Yeah, Arpachshad or Arphaxad. It's Arphaxad or Arpachshad. The easiest way to spell it is Arpachshad. Let me see, is that right? No, I don't know, something like this. It's Arphaxad, Arpachshad, or something like that. I guess that's the easiest way to spell it. Arphaxad, Arpachshad. I just say Arpachshad. Because the other way to spell it is more Arpachshad than Arphaxad. But as I spell it one way and I pronounce it the other way. So I guess whatever. It doesn't really matter how you pronounce something. It's not like a big deal. Just as long as you can get message across. That's the first son of Shem. So it's Arpachshad, Elam, Asher, Aram, and Lud. And a lot of there's not too much attention on Arpachshad. A lot of people have never even heard of Arpachshad or Arphaxad, or however you want to say it. And it's, that's a shame, because that's a very important lineage. It's the IJK lineage that identifies, or actually it's IJ lineage, but there's an S&P marker that we share with Eurasian. All the rest of the Eurasian is the IJK marker. So, and we can have that marker because it would be the uncle of Arpachshad. So that means it's possible for Arpachshad to share a marker with his uncle because they have a common ancestor. First first understand barbershop and barbershop instead of barbershop. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and I'm very confident that those are the designations of the 16 ancient civilizations. It would be nice if more people could afford the $300 to do the Y chromosome test and the mitochondrial test. I didn't do the mitochondrial self test myself. I because my cousins did the mitochondrial DNA test on my mother's side, so I didn't have to do the mitochondrial test. And so I'm a H3G, and which is very common in Europeans, which is a Semitic lineage. But Semitic doesn't necessarily mean Jewish. Semitic can be F, G, H, I, or J. Because the Jewish people aren't the only Semitic lineages that there are. The Assyrians, the Arameans, the Lydians, and the Elamites are all Semitic too. So it's basically the Middle East areas are all Semitic. Even Italy today, if you have a G or a F or a J or an E or an H, that's all Semitic lineage from Shem. And yeah, and the Arabs are Semitic too because they're from Abraham. That's right. In Abraham had 7 sons or 7 other sons, or 7 sons altogether, I think. So they would all be J J1 something, or I don't know. Depending on how many of the tribes survived, the Arab tribes and the lineage, Y chromosome lineage, depends how much they were able to survive. So yeah, I guess that's about it. So to re review, evolution is easy to disprove because evolution depends on mutations, which are very rare. The variation is from the mixing of the genome of the father and the mother. It's never the same information. That's why the kids come out different, and that's what causes the variation. The variation is inherent in the genome. That's what causes the variation, not mistakes. Because if you're going to depend on mistakes, it'll never happen. Because the mistakes are detrimental because we are suffering from genetic entropy. We don't. Our genome is smaller than the Neanderthal genome, which means we are a skeleton of what we used to be. And plus, all the variation that we have is because of the limited information that we have. We don't have near as much information in our genome as what we used to have, or humans used to have. So that's the easiest way to disprove evolution. And I'm very confident of my haplogroup designations A through T, that I have them all assigned to the 16 grandsons of Noah, which is from the Table of Nations, and it's the 16 original ancient civilizations. So, by way of review, the sons of Japheth, just going by the letter group, would be K is Tubal, L is Tiraz, M M and S they branch off from K. So they would be Tubal. N and O, I've reassigned them as Magog. So both N and O are descendants of Magog. P is Meshech. It's a group. It's a group, but it's also a specific lineage as well. Just like the F and the K is a group of lineages, but it's also its own lineage as well. So the P is Meshech, Q is Madai of the Medes, R is Gomer in Europe. He had three sons, Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. Ashkenaz A1B. Ashkenaz is R1A. R1A. Riphath is R1B. Togarmah is R2. From the three sons of Gomer. That fits perfectly. And the S have already branches off from the K lineage, which is Tubal. And the only one left is T, which should be the descendants of Javan. L is the Thracians, and the T is Javan. Javan had four sons, Elisha, Dodanim, Kittim, and Tarshish, which are all locations that are throughout the Mediterranean. So they basically stayed in the Mediterranean area, had trade, but then they're since they were like, also partially in Greece, they had trade with the Horn of Africa. So there's a big exchange of DNA between Greece and the Horn of Africa. So there's the V13 in Greece and Europe, and the V12 is in Africa, but there's also a T from the descendants of Javan, the basically Mediterranean Sea people that had trade with the Horn of Africa. So that's well explained because of the trade that they had with the Horn of Africa. So that's very interesting as well. And everything lines up with history. It's all historical. Yeah, if I and J are Semitic. Yeah, Semitic. We use the word Neanderthal as a derogatory description of someone who is not very smart, someone who is not the sharpest tool in the toolbox. Yeah, that's because the scientists originally, when the scientists started to describe Neanderthals, they described them that way. See, I'm in Europe. Yeah, so the Europeans have 95% of European population is Semitic, which is could be anybody, any one of the five sons of Shem, or descendants of the five sons of Shem is Semitic. And so it'd be their wives as well, which are Semitic. So that's the work, with the exception of the Q of the Medes, which is very interesting as well, that there's a record that Madai asked to marry one of the daughters of Shem. So everywhere the Medes go today, you'll find the Semitic lineage, which is A, W, and X. They're all connected. They branch out, but they're all in the areas where the Medes are known to have been. Let's see, I don't look like an Arab though. Yeah. Well, I don't. I'm an I1 M253, and I don't look very Arabic. Well, I have a a Jewish great great grandfather. That's why my looks like this. But um, and originally, my first test came out when I first did my DNA test. It came out 2% Caucasus. But then they changed it. They said, "Oh, that's not Caucasus." But I guess they're a little confused as to where the genetics came from. But they eventually reassigned everything. I'm over more than 50% Irish and Scandinavian, about 12. So it changes all the time. 12% Scandinavian, Scottish, and Welsh. Or I don't even know if they designated Scottish, but Welsh and Scottish, something like that. Yeah, got a small nose. Yeah. Well, and that was kind of like a secret is my my I guess my grandfather's father or grandfather was Jewish, and that was back at the time where it's like a scandal to be Jewish or whatever. But I guess it's all explained. And other than that, I'm Scotch Irish, English, and some German too. A little bit of German. I have Morgan in my family and Beaver, Morgan, and but they're like it doesn't account for much it doesn't account for much in my genome, but it's there. I wouldn't be here without it. So, yeah, I hope everybody is blessed this week and for the rest of the week and has a nice week. Today Wednesday, right? March 26th. And I'm fully retired, ready to go. So God bless everybody and take care. Have a great week.